Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hello, welcome. My name is Charlotte. Am I in focus? Just gonna check. In today's video, as you can tell by the title, I have 10 books to talk about which are or have become or are now my favourite books of 2019. I will not be talking about them in any specific order. It's not like the first one I talk about is number 10 and the last one I talk about is number 1. I'm just going to talk about them in a random order. Some of them are actually like series or like 2 books in the same series or world. They're all very similar. And I'm a bit sad that not a lot of them or barely any of them are fantasy. Most of them are contemporary, which just says something about me. I think 3 of these books are non-fiction, which for me is crazy because I never even used to really read that much non-fiction, but I have this year, especially through audiobook. 2 of them are graphic novels. One of the books I don't have physically because I listen to it on audiobook, but I will remember to slot it in. I've just got to check my notes to see where I should slot it in. Without further ado, we're just going to dive right into my favourite books of 2019. So the first 2 books, I will be counting them as 2 separate books, but like, you know, I'm just going to do them together, is Heartstopper Volume 1 and Heartstopper Volume 2. I could say that these could possibly be my favourite books of the year, but I'm not going to say it because I haven't really thought about it that deeply. But these books are honestly the most purest and most amazing things I've ever read. I haven't planned any of my thoughts to say in this video, so what you're going to be hearing is just straight from my mouth. It's not planned. They're just so beautiful. If you do not know what Heartstopper is about, where have you been? If you're new to booktube, you probably won't know what these are about. This is a graphic novel series. So the first one follows our characters Nick and Charlie. I think it's Nick that is already out, and he was kind of outed when he was, you know, like last year. They're at school together. Charlie's in the year above him, and they end up having to be in the same form, and they end up like starting to be friends, and then like more feelings develop, and it's just a pure, beautiful graphic novel series story about 2 boys falling in love in the most purest way. And then this one obviously just follows on more of their story, and it kind of deals more with Charlie's sexuality and him coming to terms and trying to realise maybe what his sexuality is, if he's gay, if he's bi, and it's just so pure. And I read number 2 in one sitting. I just sat there and read it, and I think I just remember getting them and just holding them and having them and just being like, this is the best day of my life because they're so beautiful, because we love them so much. And just I can't wait for volume 3, which is coming out in February. Very excited. Love these to death. You'll be seeing these on like pretty much everybody's favourite books of 2019. Chef kiss. The next 2 books are not in the same series or in the same world, but they're by the same author, and that is Letters to the Lost and Call It What You Want by Bridget Kemmerer. Let's start with Letters to the Lost because this is the first one I read. This book is about our main character Juliet, and her mother has just died, and she starts writing letters, or just kind of writing letters to put on her mum's grave, just as a way of, you know, remembering her mum, and just kind of like, you know, she's going through the process of grieving. And it also follows our main character Declan, who's kind of seen as a tough guy, and he's kind of on, I would say parole, but he's kind of having to do community service at the moment after he was caught drink driving, and he works at the graveyard, and he starts reading and finding Juliet's letters, and they start kind of like writing letters backwards and forwards to each other. They go to the same school, but obviously they don't know who each other is, and they kind of just build this relationship through these letters, and then it's all about kind of discovering who each other are, like literally. Just overall, it was just so, this is my first book that I read by Bridget Kemmerer, and I've now gone on to read like 3 others of her books. This one was just so sweet and so wholesome, but also so moving and so just like really deep, because we are dealing with grief, and we're dealing with loss, and we're dealing with what these kids are going through because of that. Juliet has lost her mum, and she's still trying to deal with that, and Declan, he's just trying to deal with a lot. Everybody in this book are trying to deal with a lot, and I just really loved the relationship that grew between them. It was never perfect, and that's like with Bridget Kemmerer's books, none of her characters are really perfect, and they were flawed. It was so beautiful, and I just really, at first this was my favourite, but we'll get on to my favourite Bridget Kemmerer book in a bit. I love the characters, and there are other characters in this book that we meet. We meet Declan's best friend Rev, who I love. I think he's definitely my favourite character from this book, and we do get like another book with him. It's called More Than We Can Tell, but for other reasons that book it's not on my favourites of the 2019. I still really enjoyed it, but it's just other stuff, not to do with Rev. Rev was perfect, we love Rev. But overall this book was just so really easy read, but just so like heartbreaking, heartwarming, and just so important, and just beautiful. It was really great. And the other Bridget Kemmerer book that is on this list is my favourite one by her so far. I love this book, and it is Call It What You Want. I have specific memories of reading this book when I was kind of when I was visiting home from university just for a weekend, and I remember reading it on the train and just reading it when I was at home. It took me longer to read this than expected just because I was doing stuff, I was busy with uni. I fell in love with this book so much. This book follows 2 characters. The first character is Rob, and he's just been through something. His dad has just been exposed for like doing fraud and kind of losing loads of people money and just really pissing off a lot of people in the town. And Rob is having to deal with repercussions of that because people at school are thinking, how did Rob not know about what his dad was doing? They're kind of seeing Rob as kind of part of it, even though he wasn't. And it also follows our other character, Megan, who I'm not sure how long before the book started, but she cheated on her SATs, even though she's an overachiever and she's a really, really smart, kind of just like stupidly decided to cheat on her SATs. So people obviously know about that and kind of just see her as a cheater, even though they know she's a smart person. And her sister, who is off at college, comes home and is pregnant. It's all kind of just taking a toll on the family because her sister is this like amazing lacrosse player who got a scholarship to her college because she's amazing at lacrosse. So it's about Rob and Megan, who kind of classically, you know, classic teenagerly way, have to work on a kind of science project together, and they kind of just start to build a friendship to a romance, and it's just so great because everything that's spoken about in here, it's not teen pregnancy, but it's like, you know, young girl gets pregnant, you've got, you know, teens going through stressy situations. I love this book so much. And one thing that happened when I was reading this book that never usually happens when I read books is I fan casted the crap out of this book. For some reason, I just ended up fan cast. I think I was like in the height, or I'm always in the height of this, but I was having like a major like Timothée Chalamet's love of my life moment. And then when I was reading the description of Rob, Timothée Chalamet fit the description of Rob. So I cast Timothée Chalamet as Rob. Statistic, yep. Statistic, yep. Statistic, yep. Statistic. So I ended up just like fan casting like everybody. This book was just so well done because the conversations with the characters and just like the development of the characters was so genuine and so pure, but so flawed. Every character in this book is so flawed. This is what is not good when I don't plan these videos, because I just end up being like, it's so good and that's it. Just the way these characters interacted and developed their relationships and how the scenes were executed was just so pure. I say pure as if it's like, oh, that's so sweet, but I mean pure as in like raw and realistic. That's the word I'm looking for, realistic. It's just all of these scenes and just this whole story and the development and the relationships between the characters were just so realistic and so relatable. I loved it so much, and it's my favourite, and I would die for Rob, 100%. I would die for him, especially when he looks like Timothée Chalamet in my mind. I highly recommend, if you have not read, if you've read like Bridget Cameron's A Curse of Dark and Lonely and you haven't read any of her contemporaries, get on it now, because they're both so great. More Than We Can Tell, which is like kind of a companion spin-off or kind of sequel to this, not kind of following other characters, isn't as good, but it's still good. You should read them because they're great. I love them. Can she write another book in this world? I want more Rob. Anyway, I'm gonna move on because I could swoon over these books forever. The next book, honestly, would die for. It's a non-fiction book. I have the kind of spin-off slash kind of companion book to it, which is a Christmas edition of it. But this book, honestly, it's just so great. It's just so great. And that is This Is Going to Hurt by Adam Kay. I feel like everybody and their mother has read this book, especially in the UK, and it's one of those kind of non-booktube-y books, but still booktubers read it, but it's more of like a locals book. It's a very popular book. That's what I'm trying to say. But this book is written by our author Adam Kay, who is not anymore, but he used to be a doctor in the NHS, and it's about his kind of story and his journey going through, you know, starting off as a medical student and kind of going through to like when the reason why and when he stopped and he quit being a doctor. It's written kind of diary format because This Is Going to Hurt, Secret Diaries of a Junior Doctor, and it's just him kind of saying day-to-day stuff about, I saw this patient and this happened, and he writes in just the best way because he can be sarcastic, he can be funny, he like rips the crap out of so many of these patients being like, are you stupid, sort of thing. But then also there are touching moments where he has to, because he did work in like a labour ward sort of area for a while, so he does talk about some of the hardships of working in that. It was so good, so funny, disgusting at times. There were times where I was literally like, oh my body, that would hurt. But he brought out one for Christmas called 'Twas the Night Shift Before Christmas, which I own and I need to read. It's apparently not as good as this one because it is just like a companion, like small kind of one, but I still want to read it because I just enjoyed this one so much. And I think the most important thing that if you're going to read this book that you're going to get out of it is learning and understanding how hard it is to be a doctor, or just anybody working in the NHS at the moment, because the NHS is under a lot of strain. We love our NHS, we want to keep our NHS, but it's under a lot of strain. It's putting our workers, our doctors, our nurses, etc. in under a lot of strain, and that's what, you know, he does focus on, and it's a very important subject. So if you're from the UK and want to like learn more about the NHS, read this, you know, want to understand it more, because, you know, we use it all the time. And if you're not from the UK and you want to learn what the NHS is and just kind of get an idea from like a more personal kind of like realistic point of view, read this because it's amazing. If you haven't read it, just read it, please, just read it. The next book is also another non-fiction book, and this honestly I took like a month to read this because I needed to read it slowly, but this honestly changed my life. Well, not changed my life, but it just made me feel many things while reading that, and that is Reasons to Stay Alive by Matt Haig. Matt Haig has written a couple of books, this one and Notes on a Nervous Planet, which I would love to read, on mental health and his journey with mental health. This one specifically does focus on his journey and his experience with mental health and how he dealt with depression and suicide and anxiety. You sometimes do have extracts which are like, you know, proper prose and do, you know, like that do kind of rant on for a few pages, but then you do have pages which I need to find ones like this that is like this is saying things you think during your 1000th panic attack, and it's just like a list of things. This book is just so important because 2019 was a really bad year for me in terms of mental health, so reading this was just kind of made me go, oh my god, yes, that's me, and oh my god, I feel seen. There were times I had to like take a step back. I couldn't read a lot at once because I had to be like, I need to breathe, this is gonna like send me over the edge, but it was just so important and just so heartbreaking, but just so important for me personally. I did, for the first time like ever, I did like not annotate, but like as you can see, I did underline stuff just, you know, for when I can go back and go, ah yeah, those are very important things. Oh yeah, I relate to that, and just things I can remember. But I absolutely love this, and I do want to read Notes on a Nervous Planet because I've heard amazing things about that one as well. I would say, warning, obviously very massive trigger warning for suicide, depression and anxiety, and to not read it if you are really struggling with your mental health. And if you still want to read it, kind of go through it like a couple of pages at a time and just kind of dip your toe in before you kind of take the dive, because it is, even with when I was having a good mental health day, I was like, oh my god, this is reminding me of all the bad mental health days I've ever had. The next book is the last non-fiction book that I read this year and loved, and I don't have it because it's one I read on audiobook, and that is Becoming by Michelle Obama. This book was fantastic. I honestly feel like I'm the Obama's best friend, or at least Michelle's best friend. I loved that family before, and now I worship them. Now I see them as like gods, and I think they're the most amazing family ever. So this is just about Michelle and about her life from, you know, when she was born to kind of now, to kind of the end of Obama's presidency. And it's just so good because I listened to it on audiobook, which I knew I had to do because I knew she narrated it. It is just so good because you really just get to know her, and because she's reading it on the audiobook, you feel like she's just telling you her life story. You're just sitting there, she's telling you her life story, and she is really, and she just tells you about, you know, growing up in Chicago in like not a wealthy area and pushing herself and really working hard to get to law school, which she did, and she crushed it. And then it's about her meeting Barack and about how she viewed Barack being president and how she viewed being the first lady. You think you see her and you're like, oh my god, she's living her best life, she's having so much fun, but then when you hear it from her perspective and you actually hear what she has to say about it, that she is like, there are some times when it is just not what I want. It was just so much. Like, she never really wanted Barack to run for president. Obviously she wasn't going to stop him, and she wasn't going to be annoyed when he did become president, because it's not something she can change, but she was like, you do know what you're going to, you know, have to go through, you know what we have to put our kids through. I love her. I want her to write all the books now, and I want her to just read all the books to me now, because she's just, I feel like she's my best friend. She's just amazing. And now I'm just like, had she just like on Twitter or Instagram, just checking up on the Obamas and just being like, how you doing? You living your best life? That's good. That's all I care about. There was one thing she does say at the end of the book, be like, I just want to put this out here because, you know, loads of people saying it, loads of people want me to do this, but I will never run for president. Obviously I understand why, because she's already been through it, she doesn't want to do it again, but like, it's sad because she would be a great president. I definitely recommend this to everybody, and I feel like a lot of people have read it or are thinking about reading it, and I definitely encourage you to do so because it is so good. And if you can, listen to it on audiobook. Beautiful, amazing, chef kiss, best thing. Just so great, just so great. We are down to our last 3 books, and the next 2 I'm doing together because they're a series, they're a duology, companion thing, I don't know. So the first one is Geeky Ella by Ashley Poston, and the second one is The Princess and the Fangirl by Ashley Poston. It's really sad when I realised that these are different sizes. Can you see the different sizes? It's very sad. These 2 books, okay, so let's start with Geeky Ella. Geeky Ella follows our character Elle. It's a Cinderella retelling, which we can all guess. It's about our main character Elle, who obviously her dad and her mom have died, and she's living with her evil stepmother and, you know, her 2 evil stepsisters, and she's like obsessed with this TV show called Starfield that she used to watch with her dad. And now Starfield is kind of getting a film reboot, and, you know, everyone's like, oh my god, who's gonna be cast? And the guy who gets cast is this kind of old soap actor. Obviously he's about her age, he's young, but you know, he's known for doing soaps, and like Elle's just like, well, that's not what I want, you know, he's a teen heartthrob, but that's not what I want. I want someone who actually loves Starfield and is passionate about it. So she's not very happy with who's cast. We also follow Darian, who is the guy who's been cast, and he's actually like a massive fan of the show. He has to hide it to kind of still keep that image of being a teen heartthrob. Elle's dad was the creator of this thing called Excelsior's Con, I think that's how you pronounce it, which is kind of like the Comic-Con for Starfield, and it's kind of become like a general Comic-Con. And she decides this year to enter the kind of costume competition for Starfield so she can get tickets to the premiere. And somehow her and Darian end up, I think Darian gets her number somehow, or a number that she has, if that makes sense, and they end up obviously talking and building this relationship via text, which has kind of like a Cinderella story vibes. And it's just them building this relationship through the text, not really knowing who each other is. Like, she doesn't know that he's like Darian Freeman, the guy who's going to be playing her favourite character. This book is full nerdy, all the nerdy stuff. So if you're a nerd, get on this. I just loved it because it obviously delved into fan culture, and even though it's not like quality fiction, you know, it's still cheesy, nerdy romance YA stuff, but I loved it and I fell in love with it, and it was a really easy read, and I just found myself laughing and just kind of feeling really seen, if you know what I mean, because it just deals with fan culture. Her stepmother and all that sort of stuff are like, oh, you're so nerdy, like, oh, I don't see how you can find meaning and love a TV show. And I'm here like, well, hello sir, have you met me? My name's Charlotte Dale, and I fall in love with fictional characters on the daily. And I was just kind of sitting there being like, I wish I could say this and say all the stuff that Elle was saying to her, like to the people who are like judging me for liking loads of fan stuff. Again, it's not, I liked it because it was like quality fiction and like quality literature. It's just a lot of fun, and I have very good memories of reading it. I enjoyed it a lot. Princess and the Fangirl is kind of a companion book, and it's a Princess and the Pea. No, it's not Princess and the Pea, it's the Prince and the Pauper retelling. It's obviously after Geeky Ella takes place. It's not following our main characters from the Princess from Geeky Ella, but it's following Darian's co-star from Starfield. And it's also following another character called Imogen, and Imogen is just another ordinary fangirl, like Elle, like us. She is in fear that her favourite character, Amara from Starfield, who is played by Imogen, not played by Imogen, is played by Jessica, yes, who is Darian's co-star, is going to be killed off. So she doesn't want that to happen, she wants to try and stop that. And she actually looks like Jessica, so at press or a con or a Comic-Con or something, they get their identity switched, you know, wrong place, wrong time, their identities get switched. They end up kind of teaming up together to try and save Amara, because also the script for the second film gets released or gets leaked and people think it's Jessica. It's about them kind of banding together to kind of just save Amara. I feel like I enjoyed this one a lot more. I read it a lot quicker because I was reading it while on holiday, so I had a lot of time just to sit there and read it, but I think I enjoyed this one a lot better. And to be fair, because I read it in summer, I can't really remember like much about why I did, but I just, once again, I think it was just very similar to Geeky Ella in the terms of the nerd culture. As I said with Geeky Ella, it's not because it's quality fiction, quality literature, it was just because it was light and it was cute and it was just really sweet to read, and I just had a lot of fun. I think that's the thing with these two books, it's just I had a lot of fun reading them, and that's why they're on my top, because I just know that if they'll be easy to go back to and to reread if I want to, and also they just give me good memories. I just feel like I look at those books and go, I had a good time reading those, like I had a really great time and I really loved reading them. They're both great. I definitely recommend reading them both. People say you don't have to read Geeky Ella to read The Princess and the Fangirl, but I do encourage reading this one, to read this one, because we still do see Darian and Elle in this one, but they're not the main characters, and you kind of, if you want to get the proper understanding of what Starfield is, you would want to read this one before reading this one, if you get my drift. But you don't have to, but I encourage it. Final book on this list of my favourite books of 2019 is Wondersmith, yes, Wondersmith, The Calling of Morrigan Crow, which is the second book in the Nevermore trilogy. I think it's going to be a trilogy. The third book's coming out next year, like August or something. I did read the first book, Nevermore, in 2019. I loved it, but it wasn't just like one of my favourites, but this was... I definitely loved it more. If you don't know what this series is about, it's about a main character called Morrigan, and she is known to be cursed, and everything that happens in her town is like blamed on her, all the bad things that happen. And she's known that on her 11th birthday that she will die, until her 11th birthday does come around and this guy called Jupiter North whisks her away to this magical land or magical city of Nevermore, where she gets to take part in these trials to become a part of this like wondrous society. And it's just so reminiscent and so nostalgic of Harry Potter. It's very influenced by that in the best way ever. And it's just so, because it's middle grade, it's just so warm and so homely. It just feels so good because it's just so whimsical and beautiful. And this one obviously takes place after everything that happened in the first book, and we're delving more into kind of Morrigan's path and like her life now in this town, in this society. She's building on so many of these friendships, meeting so many people, building on her friendship with Jupiter North, and following her as she's just getting to know and really kind of delving into this world and this city that she's kind of now having to deal with, and all kind of the mishaps that happen. She's kind of training herself to be part of this society, and it's just so good because it just, every time I read it, it just felt really warm, like there was a fire crackling and I was just there like all cozy, and just felt like I was really reading Harry Potter. I was like back to my childhood, and I really enjoyed it, and I cannot wait for the third book, which is coming out in August, as I said. And I really like these books in terms of covers, because the first one is like a dark blue, this is obviously red, and the next one's gonna be green, so I think it's gonna be very nice to have on my shelves. But it's just
they ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
But it is just so good. That's what I was trying to say before I literally threw my book across the room by accident. And if you want a homely, warm, middle grade series to read with a bit of whimsical fantasy element in there, definitely read this, you won't regret it. So those are all the books. Those are 10 books that are technically, I would say, 100% are my favourites of 2019. Let me know in the comments below what are some of your books, your favourite books of 2019 were. I would love to know. I can't wait to see what 2020 holds. I read about 65 books in 2019, so I'm aiming the same. I'm not really like, I have to read, like, oh my god, it's essential that I read more. It's kind of just, let's just see what happens. I'll properly decide how many I'm going to read when I kind of get further into the year and know what my kind of reading speed is going to be like. I've had a great year. I very much enjoyed it. Here's to 2020. Here's to more content on this channel and trying to make it as best as I can without having breakdowns. I'm not going to set any goals for booktube because I'll get stressed if I'm like not meeting them or nothing's really happening. Just continue what I'm doing, try and make great content and make stuff I'm proud of, and that will hopefully bring an audience and growth along with it. If you're new around here, do not forget to subscribe, like the video, push that notification bell. I hope you've all had a great 2019. Here's the next decade, and I will see you all in my next video.